I'm joined by Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill of New Jersey's 11th Congressional District. Congresswoman, some weird stuff happening in New Jersey this past weekend as Donald Trump gave that speech or whatever you call it in Wildwood. I just want to show you this first portion. You're an expert in New Jersey politics. You represent New Jersey's 11th. I just want to get your perspective of what's going on here. Let's play this clip.
Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen a Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter is a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner. Remember the last scene? Excuse me, I'm about to have a friend for dinner. As this poor doctor walked by. I'm about to have a friend for dinner, but Hannibal Lecter, congratulations, the late, great Hannibal Lecter. We have people that are being released into our country that we don't want in our country.
Congresswoman, there was once a time where both parties would give campaign speeches and talk about issues, healthcare, Social Security, wages, veterans, access to education, women's reproductive rights. They don't talk about things specifically. Now, the Republican Party that's gone full-blown MAGA, they do things like that. Like, what's your reaction to that? It hasn't always been like that. What's your reaction to that?
You know, I think stunned, saddened. This is somebody who's the standard bearer of the Republican Party right now. I work with a lot of Republicans down in Washington and trying to find ways forward to address issues like flooding or schools. But to see the head of the Republican Party, speaking like that in nonsensical terms, it's really difficult to see how this party is going to find its way forward. But what's even, I think, sadder to me is that you have so many people who, if that is the standard bearer, then they have lost faith in our system. Because there's no other explanation to me. If that is the person that you are voting for, then you must have lost deep faith in the American system. And so, I'm working very hard to try to restore that faith. But man, it is hard to see how he has made such inroads in the Republican Party.
I mean, you're a former federal prosecutor from New Jersey. You formerly served in the Navy, held leadership positions in the Navy. I mean, you've, made serious sacrifices for our country. You've defended law and order. And then he's up there praising a fictional murdering character, Hannibal Lecter. And by the way, perhaps worst of all, I think he's confusing it with the other part of his stump speech where he praises he calls it the late, great Alphonse Capone. And that's part of his speech as well. More on that in a moment, though. But I want to talk about an issue that I know is very important to you, women's reproductive freedom, women's reproductive rights. At Donald Trump's speech as well in New Jersey, and we'll frame it on this one, but we could be showing you any of his speeches where he says that he thinks states should monitor women's pregnancies, and he praises the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade. This is just from this past weekend in your state of New Jersey. Let's play this clip.
So I want to just thank the 6 Supreme Court justices, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, John Roberts, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett for the wisdom and the courage they showed on this long-term, very contentious issue.
I want to get your response to that.
It's crazy to me that Republicans continue to go after this issue because it seems so very unpopular. And I have to tell you that many of us are watching this with such a great deal of fear, such a great deal of concern for what's going on across the nation. I early on heard, women in New Jersey aren't going to care about this because it's not happening. Because here in New Jersey, our legislature has acted very quickly to protect reproductive health care. But what people, I think, did not take into account is the lack of freedom women across this country now have already, because Trump put in place the Supreme Court that was going to overturn Roe. He said he would do it, and now he's done it, and now he's bragging about it. And he'll do more, make no mistake, should he ever get into office again. So when you are here in New Jersey, you might feel safe in New Jersey, But I've had women who are pregnant tell me, my headquarters is down in Texas and I refuse to go on a business trip down there right now because I'm pregnant and I know how bad the healthcare is. We know that we have women in our graduate programs who will only take jobs in certain cities in our nation because they think they're going to be starting their family soon. And they know that in some of the states with the most draconian abortion regulations, that reproductive health care is 64% worse than in other states across the nation. We know that Idaho, for example, has one of the most draconian abortion bans in the nation. Only in the death of the mother can healthcare workers use abortion. And so EMTALA, the Emergency Treatment and Labor Act, says, no, you can use it for healthcare. Like if a woman is hemorrhaging and is in danger of having an infection if you don't abort her dead fetus, then you can use an abortion to do that and protect her ability to have children again. And in the Supreme Court case, the lawyer from Idaho could not answer as to whether or not that would be permissible in Idaho, because quite frankly, it wouldn't be. It is the death of the mother. So these are such extreme bans going on, something that Republicans want to see across the nation, that we see women in every state in the nation really feeling threatened by what's going on here.
There was probably, somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people who attended that speech that Donald Trump gave. And about halfway through, a lot of them were leaving. There's video footage of people leaving. Yet, Donald Trump's people early on put out a statement that there was 80,000 to 100,000 people. The mayor of Wildwood, New Jersey, I'm sure you know who he is. He was recently indicted again for some healthcare related fraud, who's a MAGA guy. They were pushing these numbers, and the media, rather than focusing on the statement that I just shared with you or Donald Trump talking about Hannibal Lecter, they ran with, it almost looks like AI Trump propaganda. 80,000 to 100,000 people show up, not even Congresswoman, allegedly. They just embraced the number. 100,000 people attended, and it shows Donald Trump had more support than ever. And they push this narrative, which is just not it's just not true or real. I want to know if you've kind of reflected on that, because throughout your career, whenever the media's push narratives on you, you've always been like, can we just focus on the issues, please? Here are the issues that people in New Jersey care about. But how do we focus people? I think people want to be focused on the issues. I think that explains the growth of our network. But how do we push better media literacy into just what's going on and avoid this propaganda?
Media literacy, that's such a good focus area. And I know I've heard some of the schools in my area try to help children understand as they're navigating information. Where can you get credible information? If you're researching a paper, for example, for school, where do you look to find good information? And that is becoming so critically important in our society, because we know that more and more people are receiving their information on social media platforms. It's one of the reasons I'm so concerned about the platform TikTok, controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, because we know so many people are getting information from TikTok, and we know that the Chinese Communist Party can manipulate that, and we've seen them do that. So understanding where you're getting your information, if it's credible information, and it's also, and it has two sides. So first of all, we need media literacy. I know most of us now, when we're told a fact or a figure or something that comes to us, we say, where did you get that number? Where did you get that information? Because we know how much misinformation is out there. But the flip side then is, how do you communicate? How do you get the word out to people in a way that they find credible? Because we're all very skeptical now of some of what we hear. And I think a lot of that is talking about actual things that are happening on the ground. I've said again and again, you can't just say, oh, the bipartisan infrastructure law is going to do so much to help our economy. You have to actually go to businesses in your district and say, look, here I am at this medical device manufacturer in my district, and they have now reshored manufacturing. It's opened up this many jobs. Here's somebody who's working now because of what Biden has done. I mean, this is this is where this is how granular we have to get. This is why I think it's so important that the Biden campaign has been doing and been able to do such groundwork. Look, it's no secret why Trump was in New Jersey. This is a blue state. Why would you have a rally in a blue state like New Jersey that you're going to lose? He's doing it because he's stuck in New York City because he has a trial date. So one of the closest places he can get to is New Jersey. So he's headed here. But it's really bad use of his time. I think it shows that his campaign is not really doing the nuts and bolts of the ground game that they need to do. I think we're going to see good work from the Biden campaign. I think much of Trump's money is going to his legal fund instead of building the ground game that he's going to need for this election. And as the Biden team does that, what I think we need to see more of are surrogates on the ground talking about what's going on in their states and in their districts and how it's impacting real people to get the word out.
You know, I also reflect on what Donald Trump did to the Jersey Shore in destroying the economy of Atlantic City, how he screwed over workers, screwed over contractors, ran his same con artist playbook. It's going to be the biggest casinos ever. Just you wait, just you watch. And the only person who made money was him while he screwed over workers. I want to share this with you as well, because we hear a lot about polls and narratives, and these things get pushed the same way they were getting pushed in the midterm. They were getting pushed in your congressional district, and you took no vote. You never take any votes for granted in your congressional district. But what the media always wanted to talk to you about, I remember the race very clearly, was always about the narrative. Are you afraid of the red wave? The red wave is coming. Are you nervous about the red wave? And I could show you dozens of interviews where you responded this way. But I want to share this one as I think just educational as well for all of our viewers out there, in terms of with all the narratives being pushed right now, what we need to focus on, these kitchen table issues. Here, play this clip.
And Congresswoman, are you concerned about this predicted red wave possibly in the midterms?
You know, I think what we're seeing is just a lot of great legislation out of this Congress that has addressed the critical needs of the country, driving down energy prices, driving down healthcare costs for seniors, investing in families, investing in our climate.
I want to get your response.
I always hate to see myself on video.
So I think that was just an important, to reflect on, as there are these narratives that are being pushed versus the issues at stake. So I want to share this with you, because at the beginning of all of Donald Trump's rallies, he's changed the lyrics to the national anthem, which is wild to me that nobody talks about. But, I don't hear the media talking about it. I used to represent Colin Kaepernick in the case, and all I heard was anthem, anthem, anthem. So the MAGA Republicans have changed the words to the national anthem, and it's now called the J6 anthem, and it's sung by the January 6th insurrectionists and Donald Trump. And every time before he goes out, he says this song is sung by the hostages and they're very brave. Let me just show this happens at the beginning of all of his events. And I know that your opponent in this race was at the January 6th insurrection. So if we can show you this clip in just one moment, let's play the clip when we got it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the horribly and unfairly treated January 6th hostages.
Well, thank you very much. And you see the spirit from the hostages, and that's what they are, as hostages. They've been treated terribly and very unfairly, and you know that, and everybody knows that. And we're going to be working on that soon as the first day we get into office. We're going to save our country, and we're going to work with the people to treat those unbelievable patriots, and they were unbelievable patriots and are. You see the spirit, just cheering, they're cheering while they're doing that, and they did that in prison, and it's a disgrace, in my opinion.
So they sing, it's a whole different version of the anthem. It sounds somewhat like the anthem, but your opponent for New Jersey's 11th congressional district was there on January 6th. They're now calling people there unfairly treated hostages. They've changed the anthem. Look, former federal prosecutor, you served in high leadership positions in the Navy. Like, what's your reaction to that?
It's just really disgusting, the way that I think Trump has always treated military members, veterans. We saw how he treated John McCain, for example. We saw how he treated the Gold Star families. We've heard him behind the scenes. He's been reported to call military service members suckers and losers. We know he said he had bone spurs, so he couldn't serve himself. It is just this sort of long history of complete disrespect, I think, for our country, for patriotism, for the things we stand for, and a really twisted perversion of it. So to change the words to the national anthem, that just is offensive to me. And then, you continue to hear him lifting up the January 6th protesters. I was there. I was actually on the floor of the House as I was in the gallery. We were spread out because of COVID. So I was in the balcony section. And I watched everyone on the floor get evacuated. We could not evacuate because there were protesters storming the egress routes from the gallery area. We barricaded the doors shut. We had our gas masks ready. You've seen the pictures of that. There were people making phone calls home because they thought they'd never see their family again. And to be frank with you, I don't think we've heard Republicans come to terms with that in a way that I certainly find in line with our values. We should have seen, when we impeached the president after that, we should have seen every single member of elected office come forward and vote to say that he could no longer serve. He would never be able to serve again. And so now he's back on the ballot, Trump, which is offensive. But then he also has these acolytes. So in New Jersey, in the 11th district, we have someone who was at January 6th, who attends Trump rallies, who has shaved Trump's name into his scalp, who seems to love this type of divisive, rage-filled, anti-American politics. And so it's a toxic thing that's infecting our government at so many levels. And I think that's why it's so important that we continue to push back against this, that we continue to stand up for the things that we believe in, and that the majority of Americans believe in, and do everything we can to ensure that, all of the things that our country has stood for so long remain intact as we go in to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our democracy.
And Congresswoman, it's why your congressional race in particular, to me, stands out as this microcosm of the threats and attack on our democracy. I think about that image of you in the Capitol building, barricading yourself with other members representing our country. You went to Congress because of your background as a federal prosecutor. You served our nation in the Navy. You didn't even know what was going to happen that day if these insurrectionists were going to make it through and start attacking people. They did attack police officers. I think of that image. I see you right there. On the other hand, I think about your opponent in this race. Not only have Republicans not come to terms with January 6th, the terms they've come to is to support somebody who has shaved Trump, the name Trump, into their scalp, was there on January 6th in the crowd wearing a forest green Trump shirt. And apparently that's what makes you a Republican today. Since when has that become conservative? Since when has that become Republican? Since when do we as the United States of America normalize that behavior? I want to give you the final word, but that to me is just one of the reasons why I look at your race and go, who are we as Americans? What does our country stand for?
I think that is exactly what's at stake here. Who are we? What do we stand for? What do we care about? How deeply do we believe in our democracy? And what's become apparent to me over the past several years is that when we believe in democracy, we have to understand that we're not always going to hear everything we want to hear. We're going to hear things we don't like. we're not always going to have leaders in office that we totally agree with. But we are going to believe that because we believe so deeply in our personal rights and freedoms, because we want a chance to talk about those issues that matter the most and not be thrown in jail like Trump's friend Putin would throw Navalny in prison until he died. We want to be able to advocate for the things we care about. We want to be able to express ourselves. We want to be able to fight hard for liberties and freedoms that we see rolled back by Trump's Supreme Court. So all of these things are critically important to us. And that's why we're moving forward. And we need to unite together, because the saddest part of all of this, as we see these fights for our values, is that it's not a zero-sum game. We are all in public service, in elected office, in the House of Representatives, in our Senate, in our presidency. We should all be working together for the best outcomes for this country. And I'll tell you, the thing that spoke the most to me in the President Biden's State of the Union is when he talked about how much he loved this country and how much he believed in this country and the future of this country. And as I was sitting there, it struck me, I've never heard Trump say one positive thing about America. Never. He's always said it's a mess. I mean, his inaugural speech was entitled American Carnage. He's never said one positive thing about America. And I said, I'm not sure he loves America, to a friend of mine. And she said, no, he only loves himself. And I think that was well put. So I think that's what we're facing right now. And to me, it's a very stark choice in November. So we, I think, all need to come together around those values that we most deeply care about and remember who we are as a country and who we can be as a nation.
Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll come back before the election. It would be great to have you on again.
I'd love to. Thanks again.
Make sure you all hit subscribe. We're on our way to 3 million subscribers thanks to your support. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.